Nick, lovely to have you here, and
Thank you,
welcome
Simon.
to the BSIA as our new president. It's a very exciting time for you to be part of the BSIA. We feel that you can add an awful lot of value to the association. And enough from me. What are your feelings about that?
Well, look, the BSIA has such enormous value anyway. If you think that crime is really a really good measure of how much a society is at ease with itself, and Britain, we bumble along in the middle of the industrialised world. We could do so much better. And although most people think the criminal justice system, for heaven's sake, I spent a lot of my life in the criminal justice system, they think that that's the answer to crime. It absolutely isn't. The ebb and flow of crime is largely down to industry, largely down to the opportunity. Opportunity makes a thief. And it's the members of the BSIA who are going to make much more difference than the court disposals over the next few years. It's a really exciting time for this industry, and I'm really pleased to be part of it.
Excellent. Well, I think to get a measure of, to put things into perspective, we've got about 160,000 police officers out there. We've got 375,000 private security officers. What is your view of those two public and private resources working together with technology?
We have a minimum of 10 million crimes. That's England, Wales crime victimisation survey, plus the Scottish and the Northern Ireland ones. Minimum. That's just personal crimes. If you put commercial crime and dark crime on top of that, way, way, way more. And as you say, we've got 160,000 police officers. That's 61 crimes per officer. I mean, there's no way they're going to resolve those. And it's absurd to believe they ever could. Moreover, we know that court disposals don't even correlate with crime. Usually, tariffs go up out of frustration. Oh, knife crime's going up, so we'll put the tariff up. We'll send them to prison for longer. Actually, the kids going out with knives have no idea whether it's 3 years, 5 years. That's not how it works. It's not very sensible. The sensible way is to preempt. The sensible way is to get in there in advance. And what the private security industry do, you talk about all the informal guardians, you might call our members. What they're doing is not shutting the stable door after the horse has bolted, but they are making sure the stable door is shut first. And that's the key thing. It's such an important, it's underrated. And of course the other thing, Simon, is it's invisible. Because they prevent crime, you don't notice. Because the crime doesn't happen when these guys are there. You only notice with their absence.
So one of the things that we champion is technology and the use of technology and the application of technology to deter and reduce crime. What is your view of not only those public and private sectors working together, but sharing that information? Is it feasible?
Well, it's feasible, provided the public sector isn't too jealous of it, and provided that we bring the public along with us. Most citizens have, I was going to say irrational, I think actually it is largely irrational, fear of technology when it comes to security. I think we're all right to worry about technology per se. Anything that could be used for good could be used for harm as well. But the sort of technologies you're concerned about are there to protect us. We have to get ahead of public concern every time there's a new piece of technology, particularly things like AI, which is going to come in more and more in crime prevention. We've got to make the public part of the conversation before we suddenly launch these things out onto the market, so people don't feel that they're being bamboozled and pushed into a corner. I think it's a really important role for the BSIA, not only to try and make Britain right out of the front of this technology. There's a huge export potential. We mustn't forget that. It's not just Britain, for Britain, it's global, the market out there. But that we've got to, as I say, bring people with us. If anything, bring the community out there before we launch. So there's an appetite for it, there's a pull, rather than us trying to push things that people are worried about.
And so if the public push back on technology because they may find it invasive or whatever it is, how do you think we can tackle that?
Once it's out there, it's very difficult, it takes a long time. CCTV was quite an interesting example where at the beginning we were told CCTV was going to be an absolute monster, it was going to be, there was going to be no escape from it, it's going to lead to a police state, and we're all going to find ourselves in the equivalent of, Putin's Russia or a great deal worse. Of course, it's not true. What it has done is emancipated people. It's meant people can feel much, much safer, and they are much safer. And it's not just the public organisations that put in CCTV. Ordinary people are putting it into their homes, into their offices to protect themselves. Now, that's true with most of these technologies, but we don't want to go through that battle that we do with CCTV if we can avoid it. We want to try and get out ahead and say, and have that conversation openly with people as new technology comes in. Are there going to be fantastic new ones? Well, I hope so. I mean, that's really up to this industry and how much it's prepared to put into R&D. My worry is that the Americans are often ahead of this game. I would like to see us in Britain really pushing at the boundaries of security technology.
I mean, it has been said that the security industry, the professional security industry, gets its technology from the automotive technologies and military technologies, and we sort of get the spin-offs of those. And I think that's in part true. What is your feeling of using complementary services, because the BSIA represent the professional, the voice of the professional security industry? That's accredited companies with codes of working practices and codes of practice and so on, and standards that they have to conform to. A Ring.com, a Ring doorbell, for example, could be seen as a complementary service. In fact, we've seen police departments using those. What do you think of the IoT disruptors and the more sort of the commonality of and certainly the uptake of what the professional security industry would maybe consider as a bit Mickey Mouse?
I'm for it because, as you say, it is out there, the boundaries pushing things, and it is disruptive, and I'm all for that. I think the role for the BSIA is to take those disruptive industries and try and absorb them into the BSIA so they do have proper standards, so that we do know that they're properly controlled, so that we do know that they're safe. We can't get all these companies in right at the beginning by the very nature of it, and a lot of them are quite small businesses. But I think we need to be quite aggressive about trying to suck them into the BSIA and not be an exclusive club at all. On the contrary, to embrace as much of them as we can.
The BSIA owns half of a company called Skills for Security, and Skills for Security currently has 600 apprentices on program, and it will have 1,000 apprentices on program by this time next year, trying to shorten the skills gap, really close the skills gap, I should say. So in closing that skills gap, everybody wins. There are more jobs than there are people, and we know that we're competing with a lot at the moment with other industry sectors where we say, come to us. We believe the security sector is a great career of choice. It's very diverse. It's very recession resistant, and it's pretty cool. It's got some really good gadgetry in it and tech. So how do you think we can attract more young people, and indeed people from other sectors into our sector, to further enhance the security sector so that it can provide a useful service to public police resources?
One thing is clear, that it needs to have a career progression. If you take something as an industry which has been very successful in getting people in, it's travel and tourism. Because you can be relatively unskilled at the beginning, and then you can be a porter in a hotel and genuinely rise to hotel manager, and even then an area manager and so forth. Now that can happen in security as well. Absolutely it can. But I think we need to explain to people, do a better job of explaining to people that there is this route, there is this progression. I think a lot of people see security. If I'm employed as a security guard and I'm 20, I'll be a security guard when I'm 40 at the same income. And actually, the skills you talk about, the skills of security, is so important, making people understand that it is a skill-based profession and there is a real career path through it.
Well, I think that's really valid. I mean, to go back to that point of 375,000 licensed security guards out there, of those 375,000, if we were just to take 5% of those, that would be roughly 17,000. We need 30,000 engineers in the electrotechnical side of the business. So my sort of solution would be, if we took 5 to 10% of that, we could close that gap. And I think you're absolutely right. If you go to take a job as a security officer, to have feasible and credible career pathways through to maybe electrotechnical or to cyber or to any one of the 16 verticals that exist under the banner of security, I think could be fantastic.
So do I. And I think one of the big threats to this industry is the non-BSI people. Not all of them, but there is a terrible tendency to try and drive down to the lowest common denominator on a price. And the more you do that, the more you de-skill, the more the industry gets a reputation of not being something you want to join. So the more we can, I've got no skin in the game here. I'm saying this because I genuinely believe it. The more we can expand the BSIA, the more we can strengthen the BSIA, I think the better it is for everybody.
Nick, well, thank you very much for your time. Really appreciate that. Can't wait to get you on board on at the BSIA. I think it's a wonderful opportunity for all concerned, all stakeholders, and everybody that has any part in the value chain.
I look forward to it. I really do, Simon. Thank you.